At some point after 50, relationships don't break, they quietly fade. There's no dramatic fight, no slammed door, no final conversation where everything gets said. It's softer than that, more invisible. You stop calling as much, they stop calling back, plans get postponed, then forgotten. And one day you realize it's been months, maybe a year, since you last spoke to someone who used to know everything about you. And the strange part, you're not even sure when it happened. I was talking to a friend recently, someone I've known for decades, and she said something that stuck with me. She said, "I think I've become someone who lets people go without even noticing." And I understood exactly what she meant. Because after 50, the people who drift away aren't enemies. They're not toxic. They're just not there anymore. And you're not there for them either. It's not about betrayal. It's about exhaustion. Think about it. How many times have you scrolled past someone's name in your phone and thought, "I should reach out," and then didn't? Not because you don't care, but because the energy it takes to restart a conversation after months of silence feels heavier than it used to. You imagine having to explain where you've been, what you've been doing, catching them up on your life. And suddenly, that call feels like work, so you don't make it, and neither do they. And here's the thing nobody talks about. This isn't failure. It's actually a sign of something deeper shifting inside you. After 50, your capacity for surface-level connection starts to shrink, not because you're becoming cold or selfish, but because you've finally learned what matters and what doesn't. You've spent decades maintaining friendships out of obligation, showing up to events you didn't want to attend, saying yes when you meant no. You've smiled through dinners with people who didn't really see you, answered calls that drained you, kept relationships alive simply because they existed. And somewhere around 50, maybe 52, maybe 58, too, stop doing that, not all at once. Gradually, you start valuing your time differently. Your energy becomes precious. You realize that spending an evening alone reading a book or sitting quietly with your thoughts might actually be better than forcing conversation with someone who doesn't get you anymore. And that realization doesn't make you antisocial. It makes you honest. But here's where it gets complicated. Because while you're learning to let go of relationships that don't serve you, you're also losing some that did. Good people, people who loved you, people you loved back. And they're slipping away too, not because anything went wrong, but because life after 50 moves differently. Your kids are grown, your parents might be gone, your career is winding down or already over. The structures that forced you into regular contact with people's school pickups, office meetings, neighborhood barbecues, they're fading. And without those scaffolds, relationships require intentional effort. And effort, after 50, is something you guard carefully. I know someone who used to host huge holiday gatherings. Every Thanksgiving, every Christmas her house was full. 20, 30 people. Chaos and laughter and dishes piled high. Then one year, she just stopped, didn't announce it, didn't make a big deal. She just quietly decided she didn't want to do it anymore. And you know what happened? A few people asked why, most didn't. Life went on, and she told me later that she felt relief more than anything else. Because here's the truth. After 50, you start understanding that not every relationship is meant to last forever. Some people were meant to walk with you for a season. Some were there to teach you something. Some were just company while you figured yourself out, and that's okay. You're not obligated to keep everyone. There's this quiet permission that comes with age, permission to stop performing, to stop pretending, to stop maintaining connections that no longer feel genuine. And when you give yourself that permission, something unexpected happens. The relationships that remain become deeper, truer, because they're not held together by habit or history alone. They're held together by choice. But losing the others still hurts, even when you know it's right. You'll think about them sometimes, wonder how they're doing, see something that reminds you of an old inside joke, and feel a small pang. You'll catch yourself almost texting, then stopping because too much time has passed. And you'll realize that grief isn't just for the people who die. It's also for the people who are still alive but no longer in your life. That's the part nobody prepares you for. The quiet mourning of friendships that didn't end badly, they just ended. And maybe that's why this subject doesn't get talked about much, because it's uncomfortable. It doesn't fit into the neat stories we tell ourselves about loyalty and love and showing up for people no matter what. It forces us to admit that sometimes love isn't enough. Sometimes shared history isn't enough. Sometimes two people who genuinely care about each other still grow in directions that don't intersect anymore. And that's not a tragedy. It's just life. If you've felt this, if you've felt friendships fade and wondered if something was wrong with you, let me tell you, there is nothing wrong with you. You're not cold. You're not broken. You're just finally learning what took most of us half a century to figure out. That you get to decide who has access to your time, your energy, your heart. And that saying goodbye, even silently, is sometimes the kindest thing you can do for both of you. Because clinging to relationships out of guilt doesn't honor them, it drains them. I think about this often when I look at my own life. The people who used to fill my calendar, the names that have disappeared from my texts, the friendships that once felt essential and now feel like distant memories. And instead of shame, I'm starting to feel something closer to peace. Because the people who are still here, they're here for real reasons. Not because we share a zip code or a workplace. Not because our kids were in the same class. But because we actually enjoy each other. Because our conversations don't feel like chores. Because when we talk, I leave feeling lighter, not heavier. And maybe that's the gift of this stage. You finally get to build a life based on genuine connection instead of social obligation. You get to be selective, intentional. You get to say no without explanation and yes without hesitation. You get to let people go. And if you've been carrying guilt about the friendships that faded, about the people you stopped calling, about the invitations you declined, put it down. You're not a bad friend. You're just someone who's learning that your peace matters, that your energy is finite, that loving people doesn't always mean staying. Sometimes it means wishing them well from a distance. If this resonates with you, if you've felt this shift and never quite had words for it, just know you're not alone. And if you found something here that made sense of what you've been feeling, I'd love for you to hit that like button. Not for the algorithm though, sure. That helps, but because it's a way of saying me too. A way of acknowledging this quiet, rarely discussed part of getting older. And if you want more conversations like this, ones that don't pretend life after 50 is all sunshine and easy answers, consider subscribing. Because there's so much here we need to talk about. So much that gets ignored or glossed over. And maybe, together, we can make sense of it. Here's what I keep coming back to. Relationships after 50, do you fade because you've failed at them? They fade because you finally succeeded at knowing yourself, at understanding what you need, at recognizing that not every connection is meant to be permanent, and that's not just okay, it's necessary. You're not losing people, you're finding clarity. And maybe the people who remain aren't the ones you expected. Maybe your closest friend now is someone you barely knew 10 years ago. Maybe the person you thought would be there forever hasn't called in months. Maybe you're spending more time alone than you ever have, and discovering it's not loneliness, it's peace. Whatever your version of this looks like, it's yours, and it's real, and it's allowed. So the next time you feel that small ache when you think about someone who used to matter, let yourself feel it. Don't rush to fix it or force a reunion that neither of you really wants. Just acknowledge it, honor what was, and trust that letting go is sometimes the most loving thing you can do. Because after 50, relationships don't break, they quietly fade. And maybe, just maybe, that's exactly how some of them are supposed to end.